What is happening there, Reject Nation? Greg and John here. We got mics today, which means this is serious business.
We are important.
This is a very professional video when you got a microphone set up in front of your face.
So listen to us.
Listen to us, as what we got to talk about today is important information. We got two main things to talk about. First one being Zack Snyder is possibly being courted here to direct a Ghost Rider movie for Marvel. And the other one is about some Spider-Man 3 news, possibly some major character deaths, conflicting reports all around circling that specific subject. So let's kick this off with the one that will probably be shorter than the Spider-Man one. So John, what's going on here with Zachary Snyder? Give us the gist, the short version here. Go. Take it away.
All right. Well,
do it.
According to Geekosity Mag, Ghost Rider has gone back and forth between Hulu and Disney Plus,
my God,
but no decision has been made yet.
Doing it.
But sources, and this is important, sources close to me, to
John specifically,
close to John. Yeah, this is my magazine.
This is not pulled from others.
They basically say that Ghost Rider's destination depends on how well the Blade reboot performs. They go on to say Marvel Studios believes that Blade should be the launch pad of the supernatural team, the Midnight Suns, of which Ghost Rider is one of the frequent members. This basically comes on the heels of reports that Kevin Feige is interested in expanding the sort of horror side of the MCU, perhaps into Hulu, because we all know that Disney Plus is not the most friendly when it comes to adult material. You know, they have certain means through which they can basically link your Hulu, apparently, to Disney Plus and maybe be able to kind of bring those series out that way.
That's clever. So the question is, should Zack Snyder do this? Yeah. Right? That's the question of the day. I could see a yes and no for very specific reasons on this. Yes, because I think Zack Snyder could do it. Like visually, absolutely. Undoubtedly. Visually, he could do it, especially bringing a lot more of those demonic, hellish landscapes to life. I think he could probably pull off the best Ghost Rider action. If they wanted to make it R-rated, I think it'd be even that much better if they wanted to let Ghost Rider be a lot more, I don't know if they would let him go hard R, but a little bit more on the violent side. Even if it was like PG-13, borderline rated R.
You can get away with a lot of supernatural, mumbo jumbo. And two, I mean, Flaming Chain cauterizes wounds.
Yes.
So, there's a scientific workaround, and they've basically said that they haven't approached Zack Snyder, but he is one of the names in heavy consideration.
I feel like Zack Snyder's the kind of director who'd be like, yeah, sure, I could at least talk about it and see what's going on here. The thing, though, is what's very evident with Zack Snyder is he works best when he's allowed to do whatever he really wants to do and let him be unleashed. And he often makes very long films. Now, whichever version of Ghost Rider you go with, I think he can pull it off. If you look at his, for example, the Snyderverse trilogy that he had come out, all those characters have this level of dealing with feeling lost or having this issue with self-acceptance, and I feel like that goes hand in hand with Ghost Rider as well, the human side of him, right? But should he do it? I would like to see it done. However, I'm like, well, Marvel, I think, is even more strict than DC when it comes to how they want their films to ultimately be executed, and he's the kind of director that Ghost Rider's all about chains, and you don't want chains to be around Zack Snyder. That way he can make the best film he could possibly make. Whenever you got to trim him down, it doesn't turn out as good.
So here are the things that intrigue me about this is, like we saw potentially that didn't end up panning out with Justice League, but there was the talk of turning that into a mini-series. Part of me wonders if maybe to indulge Zack Snyder's penchant for long-running stories, they could do something like that, whereas, some kind of Hulu miniseries. But one thing that struck me is that, Marvel is very in control of their properties. However, they do seem much less apt to just, jump in right in the middle of something or three-quarters of the way through something and change it entirely. So part of me feels like it would be about getting Zack Snyder and Kevin Feige on the same page from the get-go. And if that can happen, then I don't really have so much concern. And the other thing I thought was interesting is Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of has this, image of being, fun, and it's the kind of go-to reference for they're injecting fun into something, just like the MCU. And like we saw with Justice League, they clearly wanted to take notes from the MCU with Joss Whedon's version. And so this is funny to me because I feel like, in a way, it almost seems fitting that they would go, we want to take the universe a little bit darker. Zack Snyder, that's your thing. Come over here.
Yeah.
I could see it working out. I could also see it very much not working out.
That's where we throw it to you guys. You guys want to see Zack
you wanna
Snyder
see it?
do it?
What do you wanna see?
Leave your thoughts down below.
Leave the plot leak.
So moving on, we got some Spider-Man information here to talk about. So here's like the short version of this complicated piece. There's reports coming out that there's going to be a major character death, maybe a couple in Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man might be hunting down Green Goblin with the intent to kill him, but ultimately doesn't, which is what Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie was inspired from the end. Godspeed, Spider-Man. So we might be dealing with a similar plot to that one. One report is saying that Andrew Garfield might be getting the axe in this time around. One is saying that it could be Aunt May who's the one who's going to be killed off. I feel like actually a death happening in this movie would be good for the film because you got so much going on here already. There's so much crazy theme park-esque levels of Marvel cinematic greatness on display. I feel like to ground this into something feeling more personal for specifically Tom Holland's Peter Parker in this journey, a death could serve as a strong focal point, a strong personal service. That way there's a true emotional hook into here beyond just the nostalgic elements of all these multiverses crashing together in this one movie. If they were to kill off Aunt May, I don't really know how I'd feel about that. There's been a lot of debate, I think, amongst Spider-Man fans over the years. It's like, for the most part, we all like Tom Holland, but there is that debate that has come up about how not really acknowledging the death of Uncle Ben or having that be an impact on the character of Peter Parker kind of goes against Peter Parker to a certain extent, and so much of the DNA of that character is imbued in the fact of with great power comes great responsibility. The whole purpose for him becoming Spider-Man, a big part of that is from the death of Uncle Ben, and we've never really had something like that for Tom Holland's character. So if they were to kill off Aunt May, I feel like that'd be very bold of them to do.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like a death would be completely finite. I mean, it's freaking Aunt May, and you know she's not even old Aunt May in this franchise.
Yeah,
but
totally.
to kill her off would put Spider-Man in a position where he's always looking for some type of parental figure, some type of guardian, and so it would actually sort of do this like slingshot effect to his character, really having to be independent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these Spider-Man movies have had a lot of fun to them and a lot of sort of coming of age whimsy, but I feel like too, if we're going to cap off a trilogy, that could be, they've said, you know, that Kevin Feige was interested in taking a sort of different direction with some of the backstory of Peter in this one. And I mean, we've had Uncle Ben alluded to like on the suitcase in Far From Home, but it does feel like, yeah, after the loss of Tony Stark, who seems to have kind of filled some of that mentor, at least with emphasis, that mentor place in Peter's life in the MCU. It seems like that would, really solidify a turning point for the character of like he loses not only someone who has, been there for him and mentored him, but like his last remaining family. I feel like, and especially with their reports, like Aunt May isn't the biggest part of the previous two movies, but she is definitely distinct, and their relationship, their chemistry on screen is something, that's quite lovable. And so, if they were to take that turn, I feel like that would kind of solidify the ending of a chapter and then set up, Peter's college years, Peter turning more into an adult and whatnot. Yeah, I hadn't expected it, but especially with no real prominent Uncle Ben one way or the other in this iteration, I feel like that could be an interesting way to spice things up and to also deliver something at the end that feels finite and that leaves us, with the sense of loss as well as triumph, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that too.
Well, I think a character death of Andrew Garfield, I don't feel like would really serve.
It's more for
this
him.
Yeah, just so he can say goodbye to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how any of us really feel about it. All depends on how it would handle, but I'd be kind of bummed actually if they just brought back. I'd be okay with him like putting a stamp on it or saying bye, but I don't know how I feel about him dying in this. So I don't know how on board I am for
Doesn't
that.
feel absolutely necessary for him to die.
Yeah, it's unclear who the main central villain of this movie is. From like a certain plot leak that did come out, and there's been a couple of conflicting plot leaks that have come out. They both seem to be headed towards the direction that Goblin will be the main villain in this one. But if it's Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, if they're doing this plot line of Peter wanting to kill him and he's on the hunt for him, maybe it's MJ. maybe it's Zendaya's MJ who actually gets killed off.
Oh, interesting.
It's like kind of swapping in the Gwen Stacy role because Zendaya's MJ is sort of a riff on Mary Jane, not exact. It's not
Michelle.
It's not Mary Jane pulled from the comics,
Yeah.
you know. So maybe that's the case. Either way, it's kind of a weird thing to hope for, but I do think that it would be kind of neat if they did actually have a very impactful death for a character in the Spider-Man movies. But you know, nothing seems concrete in Marvel. Everyone seems likely to come back at some point.
No one ever really. In fact,
according to the director, no one ever really dies.
Talking to Melina, it's like, oh, don't worry, man. Even if you die, you'll be back.
All right, guys. Well, if someone were to die in the Spider-Man 3 film, who do you think it will be? Who do you think it should be? Leave your thoughts down below.
Who deserves to die?
Who deserves to die in the Spider-Man films? All right, guys. Well, subscribe, click that notification bell, hit that like button. Keep a lookout for more videos tomorrow. Got at least 3 planned. Conjuring, and then maybe an early Mortal Kombat video.
What? Mortal Kombat?
See you guys.